Hi, my name is Liz Hathway and this is my astrological look at the week ahead, and that is the week starting Monday, October the 28th, 2019. Okay, this morning we had a new moon in Scorpio. What an interesting new moon this is. All new moons are sort of seed moments. They're the start of a new cycle. It's a time in the month when the moon is not visible, so the nights are pretty dark. And as we're shifting into the winter and we're coming into that Scorpio season when we celebrate things like Halloween and All Saints, when the veil, shall we say, between the two worlds is at its thinnest, it seems to me that the Scorpio new moon is particularly dark and fertile. This new moon that we have today is really exciting as well because it's opposite Uranus. So in one way we can imagine that the stability of relationships might be jeopardized under this opposition. Things might be shook up, and particularly relationships with women, wives or mothers or friends, girlfriends, that there could be unsettling elements entering into those relationships, because what Scorpio also does, it allows room for the darkness. It allows room for negative feelings with the intention, of course, of transforming them. If we suppress everything, if we suppress all manner of negative emotions and feelings, then they remain infantile. They cannot grow, they cannot mature. And Scorpio, more than any other sign, I think, allows room for the darkness. So with this new moon opposite Uranus, I think one of the things that's very positive about it and very fertile about it is that it will give us, or can give us, real new insights into our emotional patterns and into our emotional behavior. And this could be triggered by an event, for example, as a Uranus kind of tends to throw things at us, press buttons, and suddenly things start to move inside and there's a situation. Relationships that felt secure suddenly aren't. That's very much the nature of Uranus. But it does at the same time afford us an opportunity to see things, because while the new moon is that dark, fertile time of the month when the seed is put into the depth of the earth, so it's things that can be nurtured and open and begin to grow, Uranus is very much about expansion of consciousness. I always think of Uranus as, the light in a dark room that shows you what part of the elephant you're holding. Uranus is liberating. Uranus will break ties. Uranus will take that leap of faith. And it's a great new moon, therefore, for bringing change into our lives and for personal growth, I think. It's also a good time, the way it manifested in my life, it sort of build up to this new moon, which I felt personally for a few days. I suddenly had an urge to rearrange things in my house. The moon is very much about the home. It's very much about that area of life where we feel safe and where we feel comfortable. And I suddenly found myself, shifting sofas and moving tables and doing all sorts. And it was slight chaos at one point, which is also very Uranian. I had this sort of, why on earth did I start doing this? Why did I bother? Oh no, what have I done? But it's like that when we bring change into life, until we find the new structure, until we settle in and again feel comfortable with the changes. There is always that period in between, that sort of liminal period where, things are not quite as they were. But it's a really great new moon in many ways. And hopefully if we have enough self-awareness and people do press our buttons, we'll be able to, certainly with Mercury going retrograde this week, be able to have the opportunity to reflect back on what caused that, what was the trigger, and why did we react in the way we did. So, yeah, on Monday we have Moon opposite Uranus, post, of course, new moon, and Sun opposite Uranus. So the lightning bolt, the sudden emergence from darkness, as I say, can bring breakthroughs and change. And we're talking fixed signs here, so this is the value axis that's being triggered. So it's about changing values and allowing values to change as well. On Wednesday, we have Mercury conjunct Venus in Scorpio. This is quite a talkative conjunction. Mercury likes to have somebody to talk to, as does Venus. They're both kind of quite close, but suddenly they're really sharing a space. They're both always close to the sun, but suddenly they're having an opportunity to have a little, tete-a-tete with the two of them. It's quite cozy. But they're going to have a deep conversation, these planets. This is not a sort of superficial chit-chat. This is going to be about things that really matter. Again, very much to do with values, very much with Venus, with what she's passionate about. It could be a conversation, indeed, involving things like jealousy or possessiveness, or if you're in a divorce at the moment, the splitting up of goods, who gets what. It can be a painful conversation, but it's a conversation that has to be had, and it's deep, it's not superficial. And what we see immediately post that meeting of the two, we see Mercury on Thursday go in retrograde, and on Friday Venus shifts allegiance and moves into Sagittarius. Mercury retrograde, I know a lot of people, bring it connect it with, problems with travel, problems with computers, problems with post and mail, which can be true. I mean, I have had problems with post, and I have had problems with the computer in the past with Mercury retrograde. But I think that's a far too superficial description of what Mercury retrograde's about, to be honest. I personally think I'm born under a Mercury retrograde. And with Mercury retrograde, if you have it in your birth chart, then the thinking is going much faster than your ability to communicate what you're thinking. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. But when Mercury is retrograde collectively for all of us, look at the house that Mercury's falling in, look at the house that Mercury rules. You are being allowed some time when Mercury is retrograde to revisit some things in connection with those areas of your life. It's a rethink, it's very reflective, it's very thoughtful, certainly in Scorpio work, because Scorpio always digs deep. It always wants to turn that bottom stone over and see what's underneath it. So it's great for research, it's great for really getting in touch with your gut as well, what you really want to happen. And later, when Mercury goes direct, of course, there'll be the opportunity to revisit and share what you've discovered. But it's a very powerful 3 weeks when Mercury's retrograde, and when he goes direct on the 20th of October, Mars has already moved into Scorpio. So there's more power there as well with Mars in Scorpio. And the Sun is ready almost to shift out of Scorpio into Sag. So there's a lot going on in that Mercury retrograde period, I think. On Friday, as I say, Mercury's the conjunction. On Wednesday, Mercury takes a step back. On Thursday, Venus moves on. She moves into the next phase. She moves into Sagittarius. And I did feel like that. It's almost like, post-trauma or dreadful divorce. It's Venus moving into Sagittarius. It's the searching quality. It's, the freeing up of relationships. It's a kind of a traveling Venus moving forward. She's no longer fixed. She's no longer fixed in her emotions and her passions. She's looking for new things to inspire her. And she will find them because Jupiter's a little bit further down the track there. So we know that for a lot of people, there are going to be some huge benefits, some big rewards coming up here. And I have to admit, with Venus ruling UK ascendant, its shift into Sagittarius could, actually bring some benefits now, some sense of, yes, we are now able to move into the next phase. I know this week there will be a vote on whether we will have an election in December, in Sagittarius season, shall we say. And I actually think that there's a distinct possibility that this will happen, this shift or vote for an early election. I think seeing Venus move into Sagittarius gives me some optimism, because obviously, you know, Brexit has become so tedious. It's a little bit like, there's a constant movement, but it's not going anywhere, and that's very frustrating. So it's an interesting week. It's a really interesting week with Venus as well, trying Chiron on Sunday. So again, I think coming from that whole Scorpio Uranus thing, I think there's a sense that many people have or will have as this week progresses, that sense of, that some healing is taking place, some changes are happening internally. Okay, thank you so much for listening. If you would like to follow me on Facebook, Liz Hathway Astrologer, I do post news stories under my the YouTube film that I post there as well, which picks up on some of the things that I've mentioned in the vlog of the week. For example, last week I was talking about the military feel to Mars-Saturn square. I thought it was very interesting that around the square the US killed the IS top man, whose name suddenly escapes me. But that's the kind of thing that you often see under Mars-Saturn. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Bye.